Okay, so we're picking up where we left off last week. Okay, so we did the trig ratios, right? So sine, cosine, tangent. So now we're going to go a step further. So last week we reviewed. Let's review. So if I have sine, what is sine? Sine is what? What over what? O over h, right? Opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is what? Adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is what? Careful. Opposite over adjacent. Okay? We're using the same things we did last week. Okay? That's why it was important that you understood those ratios. Now, take a look here. It says determine the length of the missing side. So if I have sine of 30, if I'm looking at 30, if I'm looking at this angle here, so let's label my triangle based on this angle. So 20 is what? Hypotenuse. Where's my opposite side? X is opposite, which means y is going to be adjacent. So I'm looking at sine of 30. It's opposite over hypotenuse, which is x over hypotenuse is 20. Now, that's what we kind of did last week, right? We're going to go a step further now and solve for that. Okay? How do I solve, how do I get x by itself? Multiply by what? No. How do I get rid of the 20? I'm dividing by 20, right? So to get rid of division by 20, I multiply by 20. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 20. Alright, so multiplying by 20. So this is what we're plugging into our calculator then. 20 sine 30. Okay? So go ahead and plug that in. 20 sine 30. No, 20 times sine 30, just like you see it. You get 10. I know. I don't know why it jumps on me. So I get 10 when I plug that in. That means this side length is 10. Okay. Now let's take a look at the next one. Cosine 30. Well, if I look at 30, we're going to erase this for now. So cosine of 30 is what? Adjacent, which is y, over hypotenuse, which is 20. Again, how do I solve for y? Multiply by 20 times 20. So I'm multiplying 20 times cosine 30. So that's what I'm typing in my calculator. 20 cosine 30, and I get 17.32. Tangent. Tangent is what? Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So here's what we're going to do. Okay?
The opposite would be 10, right?
Opposite would be 10 or x. Okay? So let's put 10 on top. Bottom is going to be 17.32. Let's just put a y for now. Okay? What happens if my variable is in the denominator? How do I solve that? Okay? So how do I solve that? Again, we're going to multiply both sides by y. So that moves my y off the bottom. Okay? So now I have y times tangent 30 equals 10. And then again, now how do I solve for y? This is just multiplication, right? So I'm just dividing by tangent 30. So when the variable's in the bottom, basically what happens is the variable and the sine, cosine, tangent switch spots, right? So that's what we type in, 10 divide tangent 30. What do we get? 17.32. We get the same thing we had before. Okay? Now, again, there's not necessarily a wrong way or right way to do this as long as you're including what you're trying to find. Okay? So, because I have both angle measures, okay, I could use sine or cosine to find x or y. Okay, so we can do the same kind of concept here. What if I'm looking at 60? Well, if I'm using sine of 60, sine is opposite now. This is my opposite, and now this is my adjacent, right? Those change. If I'm making 60, opposite is y, adjacent is 20, and to solve, I multiply by 20. So 20 sine of 60 should give me 17.32. Y is still the same value. If I'm looking at cosine of 60, well, now I'm looking at adjacent, which is my x, over my hypotenuse, which is 20. Again, we're solving the same way, multiplying by 20. So 20 cosine 60, x is going to give me what? 10. And then tangent is opposite over adjacent. So here looking at my 60, opposite is y. Adjacent is 10. And again, if we solve this, multiply by 10, 10 times tangent of 60 gives me that 17.32. Okay? So again, it doesn't matter how you solve this as long as you put the ratios in the right spot. Okay, using sine, cosine, tangent. So make sure I use whatever I need to find. Questions there so far?
Wait.
Alright, let's take a look at the back. Here's what we're going to do. Okay? I don't need you to fill out every single one. We need to find x and we need to find y. Okay? So, to do that, what angle do we want to use? 28 or 62? 28. So using this angle, what do we want to solve for first, x or y? X. So x is what? X is the hypotenuse. What side, other side do we know? The 8, which is the opposite. So now, what uses opposite and hypotenuse? Sine, cosine, or tangent? Sine. So I'm looking at sine of 28. Sine of 28 is opposite, which is my 8, over hypotenuse, which is my x. Now, variables in the bottom, what happens? These switch spots, right? Okay? So if there's a number in the bottom, I'm multiplying both sides by whatever that number is. So variables in the bottom, those two switch spots. So I have now x equals 8 over sine 28. So that's what I'm typing in my calculator. 8 divide sine 28. And what do we get? 17.04, and we just rounded that. That's okay. So 2 decimal places if you need to round it. It's good enough. Okay? Just understand, if I round this answer and use it to find the next answer, that answer is going to be rounded as well. Okay? So if I round this answer, and then the next time I get like 5.9993, it was probably going to be 6. Because this answer got rounded, so my next answer is rounded automatically. Does that make sense? Okay. So I now know x, the hypotenuse, is 17.04. Now, we need to solve for y. Okay? So now we need to solve for y. I'm going to get rid of my blue markings here. So we need to solve for y. What angle do we want to use for y?
62.
Let's use the other angle. Okay, 62. So here's my angle. So y is going to be what? Opposite. And again, if I don't have to use a rounded number, let's not. What's the other number we know? 8, which is going to be what on this triangle? Adjacent or hypotenuse? The adjacent side. So what uses O and A? Sine, cosine, or tangent? Tangent. So tangent 62, opposite is what? Y. Adjacent is 8. How do I solve now?
Times 8.
Multiply both sides by 8. So that's what we're plugging in our calculator, 8 tangent 62. And what do we get? 15.05 if we want to round that up. Now I know both sides of that triangle. Again, once I found two sides, what else could I use to find the third side of the triangle? Starts with a T. Ends in theorem. Pythagorean theorem. Okay? So once I find two sides, I could use Pythagorean theorem if I really want to. Okay? I think this is easier. So they don't have to square numbers and add numbers and square root anything. Okay? I think this is a little easier and quicker once I get that pattern down. Okay? Questions on that? We're just finding side lengths. So let's do a couple problems here. You guys don't have these. You can just write them, kind of show them down below here. So let's look here at number 4, 3 more here, some random ones. Again, we're just solving for x. So again, look what I have. Here's my angle. So it's labeled as triangle. What is the 12 and what is the x? 12 is the hypotenuse. X then is going to be the opposite if I'm looking at 35, right? So again, what uses OH? And again, if I write these up here, if I remember that, SOHCAHTOA, I don't even have to think about it. I just look. What has OH in it? Oh, right here. So I'm looking at sine. So sine, what's the angle measure? 35 equals opposite, which is x over h is 12. How do I solve? Multiply by 12. So this is what I'm typing in my calculator, 12 sine 35. And what do I get? 6.88 is my side length for x. Okay, so again, we're not going to have to set up sine, cosine, and tangent fractions and solve 3 times. Once I solve one, once I know one side, boom, that's all the side I'm looking for. Okay, if I'm looking for both sides, maybe I got to do it one more time. Okay. All right, let's do 2 more here. So in 10, so again, let's label what we know. Here's my angle, 51. I could use the other angle, right? How would I find the other angle? Subtract from what? 180 or 90, right? 180 minus 90 is 90. Minus 51 gives me the third angle, right? So what's my 70 and what's my x? My x is adjacent, 70 is hypotenuse. So what uses AH? Cosine. So cosine 51. A is x, hypotenuse is 70. How do I solve? Multiply by what? Multiply by 70. So 70 times cosine 51. 44.05. So that's my side length I'm missing. Number 11, last one here. 36. So let's label what we have. 15 and x, what are they?
15 for
X is hypotenuse and opposite. So O and H again. What uses OH? Sine. So sine of the angle measure, 36, equals O, 15 over H, X. What happens when that X is in the bottom? Yeah, they switch spots, right? The trig and the variable switch spots. So I actually have X equals 5 divided by sine 36. That's what I'm typing in my calculator here, right? So 5 divided by sine 36 gives me what? 8.5, yeah, 8.51 if we want to round it up. That's my fault. Should have been 15, not 5. 15 divided by sine 36. 15? 25. 25.52. So 15 divided by sine 36 is 25.52. Now, how did I know I wasn't right? How did I know somewhere we made a mistake?
the number is too low.
Yeah, hypotenuse has got to be the biggest side, right? And we got 8 smaller than 15, so I know somewhere I made a mistake. And I forgot to bring down the 1 there to make it 15 divided by sine 36, okay? So those are little things that can save you in the end, especially with hypotenuse. Okay, if this number, if I'm solving for adjacent or opposite and it's bigger than 70, I know I made a mistake there too, okay? So I need to go back and check how I solved or make sure I got a number in there right, okay?